Hey everyone, it's Dylan of Harmonic Design. This time doing a live coding tutorial on how to build your own table of contents using just good old-fashioned vanilla JavaScript. Here on the screen I have one of my sites, HD plugins up, with just one of my kind of articles up. And on the left sidebar you can see the table of contents. The way this works is just anything that's a heading here in the content will become a clickable link here in the sidebar. And it's also designed and styled so that you can see the kind of the order of layers. So like primary headings, secondary headings, third headings, that sort of thing. And we get these kind of nice smooth scroll interactions. Everything looks really good. And this is what we're going to be rebuilding from scratch. This version here is actually, we're using JavaScript here to do some of the interactions, for instance, creating the IDs. But the actual table of contents itself, I'm actually using PHP to generate this based off of the content that I send it. So I'm going to be doing this for the first time completely in JavaScript. I'm probably going to make mistakes along the way, but hey, that's part of the fun. And there's still a lot to learn in those mistakes as well. So let's go take a look at the page that we're going to be basing this on. So here's my kind of basic skeleton page that we're going to be using as a baseline. We have the a header here, which is just the H1 with the title of the page. And then we have this main element here that's just got the wrap class on it, just to center it. You can see the stylings of wrap here. And the main thing about the main element here is that it's display grid in 2 columns. The first column, the left column, is 300 pixels wide, with the second column being whatever just the remainder of the spaces. So you can see that that's what this looks like here. The left column is where we're going to be putting our actual table of content links, and the right column is where the actual content of our article or page or documentation, whatever it is, that's where that resides. And it's this right column content that we're going to be using to grab the list of all of our headings and base our table of contents off of. So let's go take a look at the actual code. So here we have 3 files created. I have an index.html, we have a script.js, and we have a style.css file. Let's open this up. I'm just going to open this up in VS Code, but as always, feel free to use whatever editor you're more comfortable with. So here's the HTML file, and there's really nothing special here. I mean, I already just kind of showed this to you on the other screen. This is where we're actually going to be putting the items. And this here is the content of the page. I just stole this directly from the HD plugins page that I already showed you. So there isn't really anything special here. It's just content, nothing special. If we go into our script file, we'll see that I have everything inside of an object called TOC. Inside of this object, I have a function called init that is currently just console logging out. And here I'm calling that init function. This here is a regular expression. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry. I will get to that and I'll explain it more in depth later. But regex, regular expression, is stupidly complicated, at least to me. I've tried to learn it so many times, and every time I feel like I've kind of got a grasp of it, as soon as I look away from it, it just, all that knowledge leaves my brain. So I pre-created this, well, it's admittedly, it's a really simple, expression, but I created this just before the video because I know that if I don't use this expression specifically, I'm probably going to use something very similar to it. So I'm just kind of, so that you don't need to watch me banging my head against the wall, I just kind of set this up ahead of time. And finally, we can look at our style sheet. And once again, the style sheet is really nothing special. You mostly saw all of this on the other screen. So let's go take a look at the page again. So what we need to do is we need to first get a list of every single heading in the content, or at least in the content section that we want. That's important. We don't want to get every single heading on the page. We only want to get every single heading that's actually part of the article content. Right? Like I don't want HD table of contents to be part of the table of contents. If I have a footer with like leave a reply or comments or anything like that, I don't want that to be part of the table of contents. I only want the headings that's part of this content section. So the way this works is actually kind of interesting. The browser actually has native functionality where, for instance, let's just imagine that I edited this image here and I gave this image an ID. So I'm just going to give it an ID of hello. There you go. See, this image now has an ID of hello. And now I'm going to scroll down the page. I'm just going to go up to the URL. I'm going to go hashtag hello. And see how the browser just instantly jumps right up to that part of the page. Instantly jumps up to this image. image. And this is just a native feature of the browser. You can do this with any element on the page or any visible element. Actually, I don't really think it needs to be filled. Just any element on the page, as long as that element has an ID. If you do hashtag plus whatever the ID is, the browser will automatically scroll that element into wherever the viewport is. And that's the feature, that's the functionality that we're going to be taking advantage of to create all of this. So what we need to do is we need to get a list of every single heading, and we need to create a unique ID for each of these headings. Now you can do that manually yourself if you whatever CMS you're using, you can manually go in and create an ID for each heading, or you can, if you're coding in HTML directly, you can just give it an ID directly. But let's face it, we're lazy. We don't want to do that. We can automate that. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a script that will loop through every single heading in the content area and give it a unique human readable ID. Like looping through it all and giving it this an idea of like heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. That's easy. But if I want to send a link to a documentation link to a client or something, and I want to link them directly to this heading, I don't want it to just say heading 2. It'd be nice if it said like why going fastest and so forth. I want that to actually be the ID. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go back to our code here and let's take a look at our script file. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create slugs. So let's go toc.create slugs. And you know what? The order of operation is very important here too. And by that, I mean, we can't, or at least we don't want to actually build the physical links until we've already created the slugs. So that's why I have the init function async here, because we're going to want to actually await this. And this needs to be asynchronous as well. There we go. So now what we need to do is we need to get a list of every single heading that's part of the content here. So let's actually go back here to the screen because I already forgot. I called it content. Okay, so we only want headings that belong to this section with an ID of content. So I'm going to say const doc equals documents dot get element by ID. So contents. And then I'm going to say const headings queries selector all. And we're just going to do multiple queries. We're going to say H2s, H3s, H4s, H5s, H6. I think I'm going to stop there. I got to be honest, I don't think ever in my life have I ever used like an H7 or an H8. So I'm going to exclude them. But of course, you can extend this list out as deep as you want. And I'm also purposely excluding H1s because a designed site and page will only ever have a single H1 on the entire page, and that H1 should be kind of like it should be in your header. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be something that you would want to include in your terms of it's not terms of service table of contents. So I'm purposely excluding the H1 from this. So just to make sure I'm not dumb, let's console log this out and make sure that we're actually grabbing the data that we think we're grabbing. Let's go here, refresh, perfect. We got our list of headings. So we got 30 headings that we're going to be creating. Great. So now what we need to do is we need to loop through these headings. So let's do, I don't remember how to do for each. Okay, that's actually much easier than I remembered it being. So we're going to do headings for each. We'll call this heading. So what we're doing is we're going to loop through all 30 of these headings. And we're just going to grab the current heading of that loop by just naming it heading. So we're going to so the first thing we need is we need the inner text. I want to know what the content of the heading is. So I'm going to say const label equals heading dot inner text. So if you don't know, the difference between inner text and text content is that inner text will only grab the content that is visible. So for instance, if inside a heading you had a span with some extra content and that content was hidden, inner text will not grab that hidden content, while text content, if I were to do heading.text content, that will grab the hidden content. So for our case, it makes a lot more sense to not grab that. So now I'm going to say let slug. So a slug is just like a unique, it's what I'm going to refer to it as a unique ID. And since this is mainly going to be used for the kind of URL to create that kind of hashtag ID, I just think it makes sense to refer to these as slugs. So I'm going to say let slug equal label. You know what? I think it's time to use that regular expression. So dot replace. So replace takes two attributes. It takes, hey, what are we trying to replace? What are we replacing it with? So what we're trying to replace is this, and you actually don't even want these quotes here. What I'm looking for is anything that doesn't match with this, and we want to replace it with just a dash. So to explain what this regular expression does here is it's basically saying, hey, from the start of the string, take anything that, how can I explain this? Take anything that isn't what's defined as a word. It's like a grouping of characters under a word, which is basically just like A to Z, 0 to 9, right? Those characters. So it'll strip out anything that is a special character, like a question mark or an exclamation mark or a hashtag or any other kind of unique special character. And it's going to strip that out globally. So globally means for the entire string. And the I means case insensitive. So it's going to do it whether it's lowercase or uppercase. And it's going to replace those with a dash. So let's actually just console log this out, because I actually didn't test this expression. I'm pretty sure it's right, but let's actually test it. So if I refresh, there we go. We can see it's created slugs based off of each of the headings here. So I actually am seeing, I guess I am seeing one minor issue, which is that it's all uppercase. I just think it would look nicer lowercase. So you know what? Let's also make this lowercase. I think it'll just look nicer in lowercase. And I just realized that it's not happening here on this article. Oh, it is. So here we go. Here's an example. I was going to say, like, a lot of the time, sometimes in the headings, I'll have a question mark at the end. So let's take a look at that. How are we measuring? Where's that showing? Here we go. So here's an example. So how are we measuring speed? What is the end goal? Hyphen. I don't like having that hyphen at the end. Oh, I'm not even showing the right screen. I'm so sorry. So here I have this title here. How are we measuring speed? Question mark. What is the end goal? Question mark. And this is what the slug looks like. And the main thing I don't like is this extra hyphen at the end. And the reason that hyphen's there at the end is because we've replaced this special character with a hyphen. So let's write in a exclusion for that. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to say if, it's been a long time since I've done this kind of string manipulation. I think char at, right? If char at slug dot length -1 equals a dash. Let's actually just console log this out. I'm actually not 100% sure this is going to work because it's been so long since I've had to use char at. Okay, there we go. So what I'm doing is I just console logged out any slug where it ends with a dash. And as you can see, we found 2. So now that I know that that's working, what I'm going to say is I'm going to say slug equals is substring one word? Is it? No, it's got to be lowercase, right? That slug string, we're going to start at 0 and we're going to end at slug.length -1. Let's console log that out. So if I'm right, this should just basically print off the same thing, just minus the dash at the end. And it worked. Fantastic. So if you don't know what substring does, is it basically takes the entire string starting at point A, ending at point B, and that's it. It just takes that. It ignores anything else. So in our case, we're starting at the first character and we're ending at the last character -1, basically removing whatever the last character is. So there we go. So we've got our list of slugs. And now as I'm creating this, I'm realizing another flaw in my logic, which is, what if you have multiple headings with the same content, right? Like if I have multiple headings here, we're going to end up with duplicate unique IDs, right? We're going to end up with multiple IDs that are the same, which you can't have. You can't have multiple elements with the same ID. So how do we fix this? I think we're going to need an array, and we're going to need to store. Okay, I know how to do this. Okay, so let's create a new array here. We'll call let slugs equal just a blank array. And then here what I'll do is I'll say, ooh, we're also going to need an iterator. Okay, so let's say let I equals 0. I mean, to be fair, I could have done an iterator in here as well, but whatever, it's fine. Oops. So here I have, so just to walk you through this, here I have an empty array that we're going to be using to store each ID. We're not actually going to be using this array. This is just so that we can do a comparison. Here I have a variable that I'm just going to be using as an iterator. We're just increasing it by 1. Every time we go through a new heading, this gets increased by 1. And I wanted to add it at the front instead of the end because I think that with the way that I'm going to be using it, it makes more sense to start at 1 instead of starting at 0. So we're increasing it by 1 every time. And then what I'm going to do is if we have a duplicate, I'm going to add this iterator to the end of it to ensure that it's going to be unique. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if slugs dots, is it contains or it includes? I can never remember if it contains or includes. So if slugs dot includes slug, then slug equals slug plus I. So I'm appending another dash and the value of this iterator if we have duplicates. And then I'm going to say slugs dot push slug. So what this should do is it should give us a unique ID for everything. So I'm just going to console log out slugs. Let's just make sure that we don't have a stupid error because let's face it, it's me. So here we go. We're printing out 30 unique slugs. That appears to be right and working. Let's go make a test and let's add some duplicates here. So what's the first heading here? Why fast is blah, 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 blah. This is it. So I'm just going to copy this a couple times here. And let's refresh. Okay, we got more. And yep, see, here we go. Why going fast is so important. Why going fast is so important 2. Why going fast is so important 3. So even though we have multiple headings with the same content, we at least have unique IDs for them. So that's good. I'm going to remove those extras now. Okay, good. So that was actually a much easier fix than I thought it was going to be. Yeah, so like I said, we're not actually using this slugs to do anything other than just check to see whether it's unique or not. So now that we have that, we need to set the ID. So we're going to say heading.sets attributes ID and slug. And that's that. So let's go back here to the left and let's go take a look at one of our IDs here. Let's go take a look at this ID because I don't want to refresh it. I want to show you what it looks like normally. So here we have an H2. It has this class. It has the, Oh, I'm a dummy. So I was actually expecting that these headings wouldn't already have IDs in them because the whole point of what we're doing is to automatically go and set these IDs. But of course, I copied this content from HD plugins, which already had a similar script to this to set the IDs. So when I copied it, it already had the IDs created. Whoops. The point is this does still work. So for instance, I'm just going to say slug plus, just add some random content. This is just to prove to you that the code actually does still work exactly as intended. There we go. So you can see that the ID now has that junk data at the end. Just as further proof that yes, our code is working despite me being an idiot and leaving the IDs in for all of them. We are in fact still creating the IDs fresh and correctly setting them to what they need to be. So let's get rid of this junk data again. Sorry about that. I definitely would have been nicer to have had that as clean to start with, but this still works. So now we need a way to actually create the HTML data as well. What's interesting, I was actually planning on making these different functions, but I don't think there's any reason to make them different functions. We can just do it here. So I'm just going to say let HTML equal just an empty string. And inside here, I'm going to say HTML plus equals, and I'm going to use backticks, which will make it much easier to add variables to our string. So I'm going to say href equals. Here we want this to be the label. So that's why I actually set label differently, and then I created a whole new variable for slug. It's because slug is destructive. We're actually modifying that variable as we go down. So I wanted label to be the original inner text. So we got label there. We're going to want to set classes. Let's set, I don't know, HDTOC item. Sure. And then the ID is the slug. So let's go take a look at how this looks. I expect it to be actually pretty ugly. Oh, and of course we got to actually add that HTML somewhere to the page. So what did I name it here? I named it just TOC. So we're going to be adding it inside of here, TOC. So here I'm just going to say document. I was going to do like an insert a JSON HTML, but we can actually just do it directly. Okay. Yay, we actually got something there. So now we actually have a this is technically a fully working terms of, why do I keep saying terms of service? Table of contents. Yep, so if I click on a link, like if I click on layout shift, instantly takes us to that heading. So this is fully working, but as you can see, we already have quite a few problems here. First off, it's ugly as sin. And second off, you'll notice that like if I click on this, yeah, it instantly scrolls us down, but A, I want to make it look nicer. Like I don't want it to just instantly jump there. I want it to be kind of a smooth animation. And B, we can no longer see the table of contents. You got to scroll all the way back up. So let's start fixing those right now. So I just realized, as I'm thinking this through, not only do we need this TOC item, we're also going to need a way to know the layer, like which, is this an H2, an H3, an H4? How do we, we can actually just do this directly. And I can go heading.tagname. Yeah, tag name. So heading.tagname will give us so tag name will be H2, H3, H4. So we're automatically creating and setting the class based off of the level of heading it is. So let's take this, go into our style sheet. And I guess the first thing we can do, we can just say display block. We can say text decoration none. We can say, I don't know, color. Let's make it like a dark gray. Let's give a nice hover. We can say text decoration underline. There we go. So this isn't much stylings, but it should be a lot better. There we go. That is a lot better and nicer already. Now what we need to do is we need to make it so that as we scroll down, this stays here. So the best way to do that is we can actually just use sticky. So how do I want to do? I want the whole, do I want the whole side? No, because the whole sidebar is the whole width or the whole height. So we're going to need an internal div here. And I'll explain this as we go in. So here I have the sidebar. The whole sidebar here is the column. So we don't want the whole column to stick to the top. We just want the content of the column to stick to the top. So I'm going to add a new div here. And we'll call this TOC wrapper. There we go. Let's go here and we'll say TOC wrapper. We'll say position sticky. We'll say top 0. So now this should make this stick to the top. Perfect. So we now have it sticking to the top. One issue though is what happens if this list is larger than the height? Like if I go into here and we do, I don't know, like if this is the size of your screen, right? Like it's too tall, right? Like it doesn't fit. The whole thing doesn't fit anymore. You can't see everything. So how do we fix that? How do we fix that? I think the way we fix that is we just set a maximum height here. If I see max height 100 V8, so V8 stands for vertical height, which is for like the viewport. Then I can go overflow auto. I think that's actually all we need to do. If I refresh, good. So now this is scrollable and it's sticky, and the sidebar here is scrollable independently. And of course, if you do have room, then like it'll just stay here perfectly fine. As you can see, we can now scroll through. There you go. So now we have something that actually resembles much more like an actual real usable table of contents that you can use and integrate into any project right here, right now. But I'm not done yet. We can still do more. The next thing I want to do is I want to make the smooth scroll. So if I click on optimizing for speed, it just instantly takes us there. I don't want that. So let's go take a look at our code here. And this should be pretty easy. It's just, I'm just going to do this to the body, but you would have to do this to whatever, whatever the scrollable element is for you. For most people, it's body though. So we're just going to set, oh, I think it's scroll behavior. Scroll behavior smooth. And if we refresh and I go, there we go, look at that. Didn't even need any JavaScript. The only downside to the scroll behavior smooth is that we don't have any control over like the speed and timing of it. And there's no way for us to really know how long the animation is going to take. But I mean, generally speaking, when you can just have the browser and CSS add that kind of level of functionality and interaction, always take advantage of that when you can. It's always going to be the most consistent performant option. So like, you know, we just added this kind of nice smooth scroll without even needing any JavaScript. So now I just want to make this look nicer because right now, every single heading looks the same. Even if it's an H1 or an H2, they look the same. And that's why I added those custom classes. So if I go back here, let me zoom this in for you again. So I don't want that zoomed in, I want this zoomed in. There we go. So we take a look at this. If I go take a look at this item here, yeah, we can see it's got HD, TOC, H2. If I look at this one, HD, TOC, H3. So we can use these classes to make this look a little bit nicer. So I guess the first thing I'm going to want is the H2, because the H2 is like the primary. So it needs to be uppercase. So a quirk of the tag name is that it's always uppercase. If the element you're running this on happens to be a div, then div will always be uppercase. It'll always be div all uppercase. So for us, for the style, we can't use lowercase h2. It's uppercase h2. So, I don't know. I'm making these styles up as I go, by the way. So this probably isn't going to look the best. So let's set the margin top. Let's make it so that the first, we don't want the very first one. So let's see how this looks. There we go, starting to look a little bit nicer. We can now much more easily see what the primary headings are and what the secondary headings are. Let's continue going. I guess here what we want is we want H3, H4, H5, H6. Let's do like, I don't know, 0.8. Let's just reduce the font size. Let's see how that looks. That should look a little bit nicer now. There we go. See, it's starting to come together. We're starting to see an actual real table of contents here. So like, honestly, generally speaking, I would already be pretty happy with this. But one more thing I want to do is I just want to do the H3, or I guess it's the H4, right? So if it's an H4, I want to say padding left 1 EM. Let's just see how that looks. See, now we got even more of an offset, and we can continue doing this as well. We could say like H5 padding left 2 EM. I don't even know if I have any H5s on this page. I didn't even use any H5s. But there we go. So we can now see a much better order of operations of what the primary headings are and subheadings, stuff like that. One more thing, I'm just looking at this, something that might be kind of nice. I don't know. Let's try it and see if it looks good. Let's add a pseudo class before. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, you know, I think I like that. That looks a little bit nicer. And there we go. Here's a fully functioning, fully interactive, fully working, a pretty good compatibility version, vanilla JavaScript table of contents. And what's really cool is that it's not really much to it. We have this style sheet here, which is really just, I mean, really just this is the only real CSS styles. The script, you know what, let's actually clean up the script a little bit. Because I have this all here inside of create slugs, when the truth is we can just put all of this in the init function. We don't even need this. We can just do this. Nope, that seems pretty good. That seems pretty clean to me. So yeah, that's it. So I'm going to be uploading all this to GitHub so you can view the code. But yeah, I think this was actually, this went pretty smooth. Honestly, was probably easier than I thought or expected it would be. And I hope you learned a lot. And, you know, leave a like and comment. Let me know if you have any questions. And let me know if you have any ideas. Is there anything else that you've always wanted to learn how to do and you just never had the time, or you couldn't figure it out? Let me know in the comments if there's, you know, a project that you would like me to tackle. Anything like this. I mean, I built sliders. I built carousels. I built, you know, a table of contents now. Let me know if there's anything else like that that you would like me to see do in vanilla JavaScript. So with that, I just want to say have a good day.